For Comedy Hype News, I'm John A.B. 3 days into the new year, and Katt Williams has officially declared war on several of his fellow comedians. The 52-year-old veteran comedian would hold nothing back during a new interview with sports commentator and host Shannon Sharpe for an episode of his podcast, Club Shay. As many of us know, Katt has always had a few things to say about the likes of Steve Harvey, Kevin Hart, and others in past interviews. So for many, this would be another classic Katt Williams moment. When his discussion with Shannon focused on Kevin Hart, Katt would mainly allege Hart for being an industry plant, and that some of his early history appears to be a mystery.
According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, a rival is defined as one or two or more striving to reach or obtain something that only one can possess. Rivalries in sports entertainment are nothing new. Two opposing forces wanted to be the best in their field, and letting it be known, Kevin Hart and Katt Williams have not only dominated comedy, but they may, in fact, be behind the biggest rivalry in comedy history. In fact, this nearly 8-year feud could quite possibly see no definite ending for a number of reasons. But how did it even start? We have to go back to 2008. Katt Williams had just released his then-new special entitled It's Pimpin' Pimpin'. This was 6 years after audiences would first discover Williams in Friday After Next. At this time, Williams was quite possibly regarded as one of the hottest comedians in the world. Now, 2008 would become a noteworthy year for this feud, kind of a transition of power. It is well documented that Hollywood has a history of pushing a single black comedian at a time. This method, from a business lens, is why we've seen one or two comedians land certain roles back to back. They are carefully and cold-bloodedly built from nothing by nobody. Louis B. Mayer, co-founder of MGM, under this ongoing practice, we see how a rivalry can easily start to exist amongst black comedians. The subtle message is there only can be one king. According to Hart's book, I Can't Make This Up, he was never intended for his role in 2008's Fool's Gold. In fact, Katt Williams had landed the role, which was filming in Australia, but he ended up getting into some legal trouble and wasn't allowed to leave the country. The casting agents called my manager and said they needed a comedian as soon as possible to play a villain in the film named Big Bunny, and that's how Kevin originally landed the role. This casting change would mark as the first time people would publicly hear about a 5'5" Katt Williams and a 5'4" Kevin Hart being matched up against each other. Now, before Fool's Gold, Hart was quietly building and working behind the scenes. In 2003, the Philadelphia comedian would land a role in Scary Movie 3, and in 2004, he would feature in Along Came Polly and land a sitcom, which was quickly cancelled. Fast forward back to 2008, Hollywood appears to have decided it was time to utilize Hart even more. After Fool's Gold, Hart would then share the screen with Eddie Murphy for Meet Dave that same year. And again, according to Hart in an interview with The Breakfast Club in 2012, Katt was supposed to be in that instead of him. The next year, he would then get pushed to release his first one-hour special, I'm a Grown Little Man. Meanwhile, 2009 appears to be Katt's decline in Hollywood. Despite releasing another notable special, Pimpadelic, Katt's relationship with Hollywood slowed down. According to IMDb, Katt would only appear in one movie for the entire year, Young American Gangsters. His crown was now in jeopardy of being lost. In 2010, Hart would align with an all-star cast for Death at a Funeral. The film would feature Chris Rock, Tracy Morgan, and Martin Lawrence. Now, upon looking at this, one could see Katt fitting into the equation of this movie's comedy lineup. Hart also landed 3 other movies that included Little Fockers, and that same year, Kevin would return with another comedy special, Seriously Funny. Meanwhile, Katt would release his special 9 Lives, but would only bring in 1 film credit for the entire year. For the next 2 years, Williams' roles in Hollywood would be close to non-existent. It was in 2013 that audiences would see Williams back in another notable role for Scary Movie 5. While doing press for the film, Williams would, for the first time, publicly acknowledge a rivalry between him and Hart. I don't have a problem with Kevin Hart. I never have, simply because I'm a fan of comedy and judge a person by what they bring comedically. If I'm the king, then my crown is not supposed to be able to be worn by anybody else. So now that doesn't mean that they're not gonna try put it on somebody else's head, and walk him around and tell you that he is a king. But the crown won't match, and the crown is gonna be too heavy for that baby boy. So now all I say is I want my crown back. The comedy Lord giveth, and he taketh away. The following year, in 2014, a clip of Katt appeared on Flat TV, where he explained how he was able to pave the way for the Kevin Harts of the world. I told Kevin Hart's people how to make Kevin Hart, because I don't mind competition. I'm really the greatest of all time, so I can build you to fight me. The rivalry was officially known, not just from Katt's words, but with both comedians bringing to the stage. Katt's edgy comedy speaks to a certain audience outside of the mainstream, those who care for truth. His topics mainly include politics, conspiracies, and a view of the hood. Today, on the other end, Kevin represents a more conservative perspective, one based on being the perfect example of a family man who stays away from politics and other controversial topics, which Katt, on the opposite, has learned to embrace. This rivalry is the ultimate good guy for his bad guy. In 2016, a group of women in Atlanta ran into Katt and asked for a picture after his show. According to the women, Katt quickly became irritated and verbally abusive. I said Kevin Hart funnier anyway, and that like lit a fire under him. The next thing I know, he's charging at me. He actually hit me right here in my left temple and tackled me to the ground. We were tussling. I got kicked and I got pulled. During that same show, Katt went on a rant about Kevin Hart. According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, Katt said, even if the __ is a puppet, it's not his fault. Don't be mad at Kermit the Frog. Be mad at Jim Henson. Don't say Donald Duck and you really mean Walt Disney. I don't care nothing about what happens to Kevin. I wish him the best. I just know that somebody's hand is stuck up that baby. Understand? Oh, we're at a puppet show, boo-boo. Please believe me, you're looking at the only thing that ain't. That same weekend, Kevin seemed to have responded to Katt's comments with a humble brag. He posted a picture of himself on Instagram alongside Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock. Me and Dave Chappelle with our brother Chris Rock tonight at the Oscars. True professionals understand the importance of sticking together and supporting one another. It's about helping one another, not trying to tear each other down. The insecure ones will never understand that. Support and encourage me. That same month, Katt didn't appear to be done. Katt would release a video challenging Kevin to a rap cypher, comedy battle, boxing, or basketball for $5 million. On that stage, we can put whatever you want. A full-court basketball court, a boxing ring, 2 microphones for a rap cypher. Or you can get your ass dusted in comedy on that stage. But it's $1 million up for each one. That's $5 million, Mr. 28 million in Forbes. Katt was going to be in Kevin's hometown of Philadelphia for a show and was ready to settle the score. A few days later, Katt would be a guest on V103 in Atlanta and was going to apologize to Kevin for the challenge. Katt said that he made a mistake, but it didn't make a total mistake. He meant to cut the snake, but he meant to cut the head of the snake. That year, Katt wouldn't have any new credits, while Hart, on the other hand, would release a special, What Now?, along with several other films and also starring in Real Husbands of Hollywood. Years would go by, and the rivalry would get quiet as Kevin continued his run in Hollywood. Then, in 2018, Katt appeared on V103 again in Atlanta to support his comedy comrade Red Grant. In the interview, Katt would criticize Kevin Hart, Tiffany Haddish, Lil Rel Howery, and Hannibal Buress. Katt would imply that Kevin was not truly a man and said he was picked. He would then go on and speak about owning his own comedy specials, which makes us point out the two also shared different styles and how they conducted themselves in business. Kevin Hart has built a reputation for himself as a real-deal businessman, closing deals and identifying opportunities to profit. Meanwhile, Katt appears to move a bit differently, often on the court by not always expecting a return or profit from his contribution. In response to Katt's comments, Hart appeared on The Breakfast Club to directly address Katt. My frustration with Katt Williams comes from you keep pointing at Hollywood, and the white man this and this. When do you take responsibility for your actions? You had the shot. You were the guy. You didn't show up to work. You after the promo shoot it became a risk of the studio, which is why the studio stopped effing with you. Of course, Katt heard the message and went on Instagram, live to indirectly respond back to Kevin. I don't mind making $1 million a month and keeping my soul." While using that same Instagram account, Katt would later show that took a direct jab at Hart for kissing The Rock in 2016's Central Intelligence. He would also let Hart know that they both can handle the matter physically. "I was just in the gym, and I'm headed to Mayweather's. I'm a knock your mother boy. I ain't Stephen Naismith. I'm really out on these streets, my." Since 2018, Katt has gone on to win an Emmy for his role in Atlanta, released a Netflix special, appeared on Black-ish in 2019, and most recently, Last OG in 2020. As far as Hart, he has continued to build out his resume with films like Jumanji, The Secret Life of Pets, and a comedy special with Netflix in 2019. This rivalry reappears because of what we've seen in the past, two different styles of comedy and industry saying there can only be one. In the natural build-up of competition, Kevin Hart versus Katt Williams may never be over.